All right, we've got to talk about the Chinese spy balloon and the complete lies that China purports on the internet. Now, what's really incredible about this is how they actually use YouTube to trick us. Now, this is pretty incredible, and I want you to come with me for a moment. In fairness, it takes a little bit of tinfoil hatting, but let's be real, this is probably exactly what's happening. And the reason I say that is even though the source that we're going to look at that potentially confirms our tinfoil hat is not one that generally people who wear tinfoil hats like. But I'll tell you, it's pretty damning. So first, we're gonna start by understanding that there are people who live in China who post videos about China. And we also obviously know that there has been a Chinese spy balloon, quote unquote spy balloon, and that's because China calls it a weather balloon. And now the United States government says, look, this is a spy balloon that's capable of intercepting our communication signals, and the People's Liberation Army is basically using this weather balloon because it's a low-cost way to spy on your opponent's communications. And balloons can actually float in the air substantially longer and go undetected substantially longer than planes can. If China flew a spy plane by, it'd be obviously a big slap in the face. Planes can't fly that long without refueling, whereas a balloon can float around for weeks, potentially undetected. As in the past, the United States has admitted they have failed at detecting other spy balloons until it was too late, until they've already been able to explore, so to speak. Anyway, China's latest spy balloon has potentially spanned 40 countries of spying, and U-2 spy planes that we use that have flown past this balloon revealed an array of active surveillance equipment. Now, we're actually waiting to take apart this spy balloon. Some of the initial reports are that some of the pieces that were used to manufacture the balloon were actually made in America. They've got English writing on them, but obviously it sustained a lot of damage from the missile that struck it, and I imagine we're not getting everything yet in terms of what this balloon actually consists of. But let's be clear. The position is from the United States that this is a spy balloon. The position from China is that this is just a weather balloon. Now, what I'd like for you to think about is the following. Look at this guy. This guy has a YouTube channel. It's called Living in China. And the idea here is that he's just a normal dude who's making videos telling you about what it's actually like living in China. And so he'll tell you, hey, how bad's COVID out here? You know, whatever. He'll try to give you sort of the reality. And so he makes this video, China trolls America with spy balloon. Now, what's really interesting about this, first of all, is that you've got a video and a channel. This individual usually gets around 50 to 80,000 views per video, which is actually pretty good. Somebody who gets 50 to 80,000 views would probably expect somewhere around 500 to maybe 2,000 Patreon subscribers, especially if the fee is less than $5. You know, maybe about a 1% conversion would be very reasonable, right? So we go over here to his Patreon and we can see that the lowest option to be a Patreon member is $1 per month. And what's fascinating is this individual has a grand total of 39 patrons. Now that's interesting because wait a minute, why are the views so high but your conversion to patrons so low? When in every video you also pin and pitch it. And then what's also interesting is listen to some of the comments here. Let me get this straight. US spends $3 trillion on its defense budget annually, but can't stop a Chinese hot air balloon first spotted by civilians in Montana looking up at the sky? Well, first of all, that's not true. The United States and Canada detected it when it was off the coast of Canada before it ever even came to the United States. And the US defense budget is actually slightly under $1 trillion. It's closer to $900 billion, which means this is a 3x exaggeration. And they're trying to describe this as a hot air balloon rather than what it actually is. And they're misleading us in terms of who first saw it. And it's got a lot of likes. It's got a heart from the creator. We've got some more comments. As a country, a country that independently owns a space station, it actually wants to use balloons to monitor the US. I laughed so hard. When the balloon was shot down, no explosion, just a shredded, rubbly balloon falling from the sky. To use a $1.1 million missile to shoot down a weather balloon that costs perhaps a few $1,000s is great. And basically, every single comment here is making fun of America. This one, I'll give it to them. This one was actually pretty good. China was actually searching for intelligent life. Didn't find any. Okay, now, but what's interesting is all of these comments are pro-China, anti-US. Every single one of them. No patrons, and every single comment is pro-China, okay? Now, watch this, okay? What does the guy have to say? I don't remember the exact point, so we're just gonna hop in somewhere around here. Let's just listen to the way he's talking about this balloon for a moment, and then I'm gonna show you a big reveal, okay? This is like an expose video. Sorry, I hope the Chinese don't come for me. I'm probably not invited to China. Anyway, here we go.
There's another part I saw, I think it was on Fox again, or CNN, and it was saying, the balloon was flying over very sensitive areas of America and military air bases. Let me tell you one thing. America's military bases, right? If you fly anywhere in the world, you're gonna fly over one of their military bases because they've got that many. I know what they should have asked the Pentagon guy. They should have asked him and said, "Hey, excuse me, Mr. Pentagon man, do you know how many military bases do you have around the globe?"
All right, so you kind of get, he's making some, kind of arguments about like, come on, there are military bases everywhere, fine. Oh, here we go with the weather, okay? Let's see here. Let's keep going.
Down the balloon, it poses no threat, because obviously they know that it's a weather aircraft. And but they're just twisting it. They're twisting it because it fits their narrative. They can use it. There was because it came out that they've been tracking this thing for like 3 or 4 days, but then the story's only just come out like it today. So you can see they've been thinking for a few days, like, oh, how can we twist this? It's just some weather balloon. I don't know what's going on, but it's come over here. How can we twist this? Yes, say it's a spy balloon. Yeah, that's a great way. The American citizens, they'll believe it straight away. And.
All right, so you see what he's doing, right? He's manipulating his audience against the United States narrative, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the US narrative is correct. The US bullshits us all the time. The Nord Stream pipeline is probably a fantastic example of this. But what I'd like to do is introduce you to everyone's favorite source in the world. I'm kidding, obviously, but it still has very interesting perspective. Ready for it? Check this out. 2021 article. I actually read this in print. I know that sounds crazy because I still get the print paper, but that's how I don't miss stuff like this, and I save stuff like this. But anyway, how Beijing influences the influencers. Now, I'm not gonna go through all of this, right? But basically, listen to some of the allegations the New York Times made here. The videos of these Chinese influencers have a homespun feel, but on the other side of the camera often stands a large apparatus of government organizers, state-controlled news media, and other official amplifiers as part of the government's widening attempts to spread pro-Beijing messaging around the world. They basically have offices of hundreds of Chinese people leaving positive comments. They're not actually bots, but they're like troll farms is basically what they are. State-run news outlets and local governments have organized and funded pro-Beijing influencers' travel. So basically, the creators don't need to actually make money on Patreon because they're getting paid by the Chinese government. They have paid or offered to pay creators. They've generated lucrative traffic for the influencers by sharing videos with millions of influencers. So the government of China is sharing these to prop up the views while they're paying them. And what are they encouraging? Most of the YouTubers have lived in China for years and say their aim is to counter the West's increasingly negative perceptions of the country. They decide what goes into their videos, they say, not the Communist Party. But even if the creators do not see themselves as propaganda tools, Beijing uses them that way. Chinese diplomats and representatives have shown their videos at news conferences and promoted the creations on social media. blah, 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 the synthetic voices. This is an effort to control the narrative, of course. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Here, look at this one. In the spring, so-and-so talks about how it's totally normal here. Look, people are enjoying kebabs. People are doing their job and living their lives, right? This is like the anti kind of COVID narrative, right? And it's fascinating because that's so funny that the New York Times mentioned this over here, because if I go back to this guy's videos and I go to his channel, what you're gonna actually see is, watch this, okay? Look at this. So videos, you go over here. First of all, look at the titles. China trolls America with spy balloon. America can't compete with Chinese infrastructure. Family fun in Shenzhen. What do we have over here? Oh yeah. Everyone is infected with COVID in China. Okay, so it's obviously clickbait. But anyway, you click on it, and look at what you get.
You say that again, I will sneeze.
Hold on, let me back up a little bit.
So what does that tell you now? They're trying to suppress the truth about China. You know, I'm not going to say it's positive what I'm showing. It's the truth, really. So you know, you got to watch out. Not only Western media, but also these kind of Western social media platforms. They're trying to hold back and suppress the truth. And hey,
so there he slams Western media. There's a part where he walks around and he's like, look, people are happy here. Where is it? They're not wearing masks. Sometimes I wear a mask. Where I think it was right here.
You can see lots of people around. Most people not wearing masks.
Look at this. Look at this guy. He just straight up looks like he works for the government. Like he's been planted there. Like, okay, good, honey, we're in the shop. We're in the shot. Act happy. Act happy.
I've already had COVID, as you.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, look, who knows? Maybe it's true. But when you align the extremely biased narrative with what we know about logic and what we know about the government's desire to spin things. Remember, it's the Communist Party of China, right? They control the state media, right? Along with this, it's kind of like, yeah, it doesn't look good. Along with like the Patreon issues that we saw, right? It just doesn't look good. Now, I've gone through all of this. And one of the things they even went as far as saying is that there are actually potentially scripts. I don't remember where they said it. Maybe they didn't use the word script, but I think it was like somewhere in the article they talk about how the Chinese government will essentially even go as far as giving these people bullet points and like, hey, maybe you can massage the message like this. We'll pay you more if you say this. You know, maybe try to manipulate people into realizing that Western social media platforms are the ones that are misleading you. It's not us. Who knows? But like this was interesting. Stuart Wiggins' channel, The Chinese Traveler, does not indicate that he works for the People's Daily. Yet that was how Mr. Wiggin, who is British, was identified by another state newspaper, China Daily, in his coverage of Date with China campaign. So in other words, here's an example where somebody who has a YouTube channel, the Chinese Traveler, is actually someone who works for the Chinese state-run news agency, China Daily, but doesn't disclose that on the channel. So it's very, very interesting. So anyway, I thought I would share that because personally, I am not surprised that China is doing that at all. I don't believe a word China says, and I'm not here to say you should believe everything you hear of in the United States. I just want to wake up a little bit more this idea about the Chinese propaganda machine. And boy, I think it's a lot stronger than we actually realized or ever thought it was.